Hamilton's Ferrari win should have ended with celebration. Instead, it triggered a storm. Mercedes lost control from pole position. Antonelli's championship lead took a massive hit. Ferrari's strategy landed at the perfect second, and suddenly the rumor exploded. Mercedes had hidden data. The Federación Internacional de el Automóvil was being pulled in. Hamilton's Spanish Grand Prix victory was under pressure. But here is what makes this dangerous. The verified story does not prove Ferrari cheated. It points to something much bigger. Because while everyone is asking what Mercedes found on Ferrari, the real question is what Ferrari had already found on Mercedes. And if Hamilton's win did not expose Ferrari, it may have exposed the team he used to drive for. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why Ferrari felt the pressure immediately after winning, you have to look at what this race really represented. Because Barcelona was not just another stop on the calendar. It was the first moment where Hamilton's Ferrari story stopped being a promise and became evidence. Before the Spanish Grand Prix, Mercedes still had control of the season's image. They had the car everyone was talking about. They had the championship leader in Kimi Antonelli. They had George Russell starting from pole position. They had the kind of momentum that makes every rival feel like time is running out. Ferrari did not have that comfort. Ferrari had pressure from every direction. Hamilton had arrived in red with history behind him and expectation in front of him. Every fan wanted the fairy tale. Every rival wanted proof that it would not work. Every race without a victory made the same question louder. Had Hamilton really found a new beginning, or had he walked into the most beautiful risk of his career? That is why Spain mattered so much. Ferrari needed more than points. They needed confirmation. And Hamilton needed the kind of race that changes how people speak about a season. The problem was that Mercedes looked ready to control it. Russell on pole meant Mercedes had the cleanest starting position. Antonelli near the front meant the championship leader could protect his advantage. The Silver Arrows had every reason to believe that if they stayed calm, managed the tires, and avoided chaos, the race would come back to them. Ferrari needed a different kind of race. Not clean. Not predictable. Not the kind Mercedes could measure from the front and slowly squeeze under control. Ferrari needed a race with a crack in it. That is where the tire choice becomes so important. Starting Hamilton on soft tires was not a comfortable decision. It was a signal. Soft tires give a driver speed, but they also create danger. They are like shoes with incredible grip that wear down quickly if you run too hard. They can make you look unbeatable for a moment, then leave you exposed if the plan fails. Mercedes could see that. They could look at Hamilton's starting tire and think Ferrari had chosen risk because they had no safer way to win. But Ferrari's risk was not random. It was designed to create flexibility. It was designed to give Hamilton early pace, then leave Ferrari ready to react if the race changed. It was not just about the opening laps. It was about keeping a dangerous option alive for later. That is the part people often miss. A strategy can look strange at the start because its real purpose is hidden until the middle of the race. Ferrari was not trying to copy Mercedes. They were trying to pull Mercedes into a race Mercedes did not want. And Hamilton was the perfect driver for that kind of plan, because he knows how to live inside pressure. He knows how to save a tire without falling asleep behind the wheel. He knows how to keep enough speed to stay relevant, while protecting the one thing the team will need later. That is not flashy driving. That is championship driving. And in Barcelona, it mattered. Hamilton had to stay close enough for Ferrari's gamble to remain alive. If he dropped too far back, the strategy would become meaningless. If he pushed too hard, the tires would fade before the opportunity arrived. So the entire first phase of the race became a quiet test. Could Ferrari hold its nerve? Could Hamilton protect the plan? Could Mercedes notice the trap before the race offered Ferrari what they wanted? Then the moment came. Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin stopped on track, and the virtual safety car was triggered. That changed everything. Under a virtual safety car, the entire field slows down. Nobody is racing at full speed in the normal way. That means a pit stop can cost less time than it would under green flag conditions, because the cars outside the pit lane are also moving more slowly. It sounds small, but it can decide a Grand Prix. Imagine everyone in a crowded hallway suddenly being told to walk slowly. If you step into another room and come back, you lose less ground than you would if everyone else was running. That was Ferrari's opening. And they did not hesitate. Hamilton came in. Fresh tires went on. The window was taken before Mercedes could fully protect itself. That is why the reaction was so explosive. It was not just that Ferrari gained from the virtual safety car. Teams do that all the time when the timing works. It was that Ferrari had built Hamilton's race around being ready for exactly that kind of moment. Suddenly, the soft tire start made sense. The patience made sense. The risk made sense. What had looked like vulnerability became the foundation of the win. And once Hamilton had the tires, he did not drive like a man who had been handed luck. He drove like a man who had been handed a weapon. The gap began to grow. Mercedes could not reverse the momentum. Russell's pole position no longer mattered in the same way. Antonelli's championship position no longer protected the day. The race had shifted. That is when the suspicion started to sound attractive. People saw Ferrari's timing and wanted a hidden reason. They saw Mercedes lose control and assumed there had to be more behind it. They saw Hamilton win by using a strategy that landed perfectly, and the idea of secret data, emergency reviews, and post-race tension became easy to sell. But a perfect call is not proof of a dirty call. That distinction is the heart of the story. The verified information does not confirm that Mercedes presented hidden data proving Ferrari did anything illegal. It does not confirm that Hamilton's victory was under a real penalty threat. It does not confirm a formal Mercedes protest that could overturn the result. What it confirms is more uncomfortable for Mercedes. Ferrari beat them with execution. Ferrari took the risk. Ferrari waited for the moment. Ferrari trusted Hamilton. And Hamilton delivered. That is why the tension became so heavy inside the championship fight. Because Mercedes could accept being beaten by raw pace. They could study the car, improve the setup, and come back. They could accept a driver mistake, because mistakes can be corrected. They could even accept bad luck, because every team eventually gets hit by it. But being outmaneuvered by Ferrari, with Hamilton at the center of it, carries a different sting. It suggests the fight is no longer one-dimensional. Mercedes cannot only be fast. They have to be sharper. They cannot only protect the championship lead. They have to protect the story around their dominance. And this is where Ferrari's victory becomes more than a victory. It becomes leverage. Because Ferrari had already been asking questions about Mercedes before Barcelona. Not about this strategy. Not about Hamilton's pit stop. About Mercedes' technical interpretation, especially around the front wing. That matters because, after winning, Ferrari's questions become harder to dismiss. Before Spain, some people could say Ferrari was chasing Mercedes and looking for pressure points because it could not beat them consistently. After Spain, Ferrari could say something much stronger. We can beat you on track, and we still want answers. That is a dangerous sentence in Formula One. It turns a sporting result into political power. And it means Hamilton's Spanish Grand Prix win did not just lift Ferrari emotionally. It changed how the entire paddock had to listen to them. Mercedes had lost more than first place. They had lost a layer of protection. Because dominance protects a team. When you are winning, your explanations sound stronger. Your confidence feels justified. Your rivals look like they are complaining because they are behind. But when you lose, especially in a race you seemed positioned to control, every question becomes louder. Why did the strategy fail? Why did the virtual safety car hurt so badly? Why did Ferrari look ready? Why did Hamilton suddenly look like a title threat? And why were Ferrari's earlier technical concerns about Mercedes still hanging in the air? That is the real reason this story matters. The hidden data claim may not be verified, but the pressure behind it is real. Mercedes had reason to search for explanations. Ferrari had reason to defend its win. The governing body had reason to keep watching the technical disputes already building in the background. So the tension at Ferrari was not panic. It was the tension that comes when a team realizes it has finally become dangerous again. Celebration on one side. Scrutiny on the other. Because the moment Ferrari gave Hamilton a winning race, they also gave every rival a reason to look closer. And that is the price of returning to the front. Nobody studies you when you are harmless. Everyone studies you when you can win. Then the story moves from Ferrari's celebration to the question that made the paddock uncomfortable. What exactly was Mercedes looking for after the race? Because when a team loses from a strong position, especially a team like Mercedes, the first reaction is never simple. They do not just say, "We lost," and move on. They investigate. They replay every decision. They study every pit window, every tire phase, every radio call, every second that disappeared. That is normal. But after Barcelona, the feeling was different. Because the public claim was not just that Mercedes was reviewing its own race. The claim was that Mercedes had taken hidden data to the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, trying to challenge what Ferrari had done. That idea spread fast because it sounded like the perfect scandal. Ferrari wins with Hamilton. Mercedes feels robbed. Secret information appears. The governing body is pulled into the fight. Suddenly, a race that looked like history becomes a courtroom drama. But this is where the truth becomes sharper than the rumor. The verified information does not confirm that Mercedes presented hidden data proving Ferrari's strategy was illegal. It does not confirm that Hamilton's victory was placed under direct threat. It does not confirm that Ferrari's virtual safety car call broke the rules. So why did the rumor feel so powerful? Because Mercedes had a reason to be desperate for answers. Not desperate in a weak way. Desperate in the way a championship-leading team becomes desperate when the first crack appears. Before Barcelona, Mercedes could explain almost everything through strength. Their pace was strong. Their young championship leader was in control. Their car looked like the benchmark. Their strategy structure looked stable enough to manage races from the front. After Barcelona, that certainty was damaged. Russell had pole position, but not the win. Antonelli had a chance to limit the loss, then retired on lap 62. Hamilton did not just beat them. He beat them in a Ferrari, with a strategy that made Mercedes look a step behind. That combination is brutal. And when a result is brutal, teams search for the exact moment where everything went wrong. For Mercedes, that moment was the virtual safety car. The race slowed. Ferrari reacted. Hamilton stopped. The tires went on. The advantage changed hands. In a few seconds, Mercedes went from controlling the race to chasing a problem it could not undo. That is why the idea of data matters. In Formula One, data is not just numbers on a screen. It is the memory of the race. It shows speed, gaps, tire behavior, pit loss, engine modes, brake temperatures, steering inputs, energy deployment, and dozens of other details that fans never see clearly. But data does not automatically mean wrongdoing. Data can show why a team lost. It can show where a rival was stronger. It can show whether a timing window was bigger than expected. It can show whether your own model was wrong. And sometimes, the most painful data is not the data that proves your rival cheated. It is the data that proves your rival simply made the better call. That may be the hidden fear for Mercedes. Because if their own analysis showed Ferrari's stop was legal, then the loss becomes harder to explain away. It means Ferrari read the race better. It means Hamilton made the tires work better. It means Mercedes had the tools to see the danger, but did not act quickly enough to stop it. And that is where tension at Ferrari becomes interesting. Because Ferrari would know that Mercedes was going to look. Of course they would look. Mercedes is too serious, too experienced, too competitive to let a defeat like that pass without dissection. Ferrari would also know that the more Mercedes looked, the more the story could be pulled into suspicion. That creates a strange pressure inside a winning team. You have the trophy. You have the emotional release. You have Hamilton finally standing as a Ferrari winner. But you also have a rival trying to understand every detail of how you did it. And in Formula One, understanding can become accusation very quickly. One strange timing pattern. One unusual tire reading. One aggressive strategic call. One radio message taken out of context. One rival question sent to the governing body. Suddenly, the celebration becomes defensive. That does not mean Ferrari had anything to hide. It means Ferrari had something to protect. A victory. A story. A turning point. And maybe, for the first time in the season, real championship momentum. That is why this moment mattered so much for Hamilton too. Because for Hamilton, this was not just another win that could be absorbed into a long list. It was the first one in Ferrari red. It was the win that proved the move could work. It was the race that turned belief into something visible. If that victory had been dragged into a serious formal dispute, the emotional impact would have changed immediately. Instead of talking about Hamilton's return to the top, people would talk about legality. Instead of talking about Ferrari's perfect execution, people would ask whether the timing was suspicious. Instead of talking about Mercedes being beaten, people would ask whether Mercedes had discovered something. That is the power of a post-race controversy. It can rewrite the feeling of a race even when the result stands. And Ferrari would understand that better than most. This team has lived through decades of Formula One politics. Ferrari knows that winning on track is only one part of surviving at the front. You also have to survive scrutiny. You have to defend your interpretation. You have to keep your drivers calm while the outside world tries to turn pressure into noise.